Welcome. I guess it's time that we talk about chaos now after after much chaos to get here.
Yeah.
Should we define it? How might you define chaos?
Me, chaos is when I feel that I can't contain and follow my environment in a way that doesn't agitate me or disturb me or make me removes my joy. So it can be, we were talking just before when I'm getting out of my house. The street below my house is extremely chaotic because it's like new buildings and they didn't put in the lights yet, the traffic lights. So to me, that's a chaotic feeling. So every time I leave the house, I have this like 3 minutes of making sure I'm safe or like what's going on exactly that is a little bit disorienting. And even if it's a little bit, it's still significant. So that's for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my imagination, there's just, there's degrees of everything. And there's, just kind of the normal chaos of life and, just kind of existing in a culture that's very fast paced for me creates a lot of anxiety and inner tumult. And then there's those kind of periods of like what Izzy's talking, just like really deep, where it drops to another level of environmental disruption, where the things that I've kind of come to completely rely on for a sense of kind of ground or core stability just get ravaged, where the light gets darkened and I don't know who I am, right? Things like sickness or car accident. And that's one that comes to mind for me. The reliability of my body as I've kind of known it has shifted dramatically overnight. So as we kind of define this, and I'm sure the definition will continue to evolve as we have our discussion today, the first thing that kind of comes to mind is like the shaking of my identity, who I thought I was in relationship to my environment, and in particular my relational environment. Who am I now in relationship to the people in my work world and my close personal life? Yeah, my gestalt in the whole.
Yeah, yeah. The first thing I thought of was scrambled eggs, and then I was like, "Oh no, that's not chaos. Like that's just, spewed about. I'm sure if you laid everything out on a microscope, it would not be chaotic," which then kind of peaked in my brain as to how averse I am to chaos. I think I have such an interesting relationship to it. I think everybody does, but it's a certain amount of like out of control is fun, right? Like roller coaster, but like that's contained because like you're not actually out of control. You're on a track. Like I had this age old argument about how shuffle on Apple Music isn't shuffle. There has to be some sort of like if you were to zoom out far enough and long enough that really there's a pattern there. It's just not, you don't have enough data to see it yet. And so that's how averse I am to chaos, that it couldn't possibly be chaos. That it must be organized. We just can't see it. I think that to feel chaotic or to feel sort of like the clothes in the washing machine and then you're like, I threw 8 pairs of socks in here. Why did I come out with 7.5? Like, where's my sock? And the, the chaos is sort of this is a friend of mine said this, very good friend said, it's that feeling of being the lost sock. I am the lost sock. And that's a really disorienting feeling. It's a really confusing feeling. And I think that we all have our own relationship to chaos and our own sort of comfort level with it. And it brings to mind that two things are true at the same time that are usually opposing each other. I think that that can feel like it's about to initiate chaos, but really the holding of two entropy type things. When entropy is created, like it's sometimes that tension is not going to burst and shatter off into chaos. And sometimes it does. And we get the questions like, who am I? What am I doing? Those big, deep, I think, can be very disorienting questions.
And it seems like it's often this in the space of those questions when those arise that people phone for help. Those are the states where I've most, prone to seek therapy. Usually that's when folks are calling for therapy. And, as clinicians who are really kind of putting a lot of focus into relationships and supporting people who are moving from states of entropy and chaos into relative harmony. Oftentimes, a question I think that I field when people reach out is, coming in, what is it that people who are really successful in repairing their relationships in a therapy process, what is it that they do? Kind of what are the qualities that I need to bring in as a therapy client in order to really make this a successful endeavor process? So I'm curious if the two of you have any thoughts.
I think, John, to your question, and combined with the question also of chaos, I think that chaos, you both talked about losing the self, losing the identity. And there's something about chaos, which means like just a lot of new information in the system in 1 second or in like a period of time. And there seems to be, for the human organism, it seems to be really important for us in our conscious life to be able like to organize things. So famously, psychologists coined the term, the good mother and the bad mother. Like a child needs to know what his schedule is, and it's very important for kids to kind of know what it is. And the chaos can be a little bit scary and disorienting because you can lose yourself inside. And I think when couples come, there's some of that element of something is going into the abruptly appearing in the container, whether it's the couples alone in their house or whether it's like in the session itself. And I think a good clinician is a clinician that manages to show them that, oh, I can contain all this. This doesn't put me into chaos at all. This is this. You kind of show them. And once there's that feeling of an order, people seem to be much more calm. And so for me, a successful client-therapist relationship in that sense is when the therapist can put a little bit of order and at least offer that to the clients. And it's not order in the sense of like that things are, that we know what everything is, but it's order in the sense of I am not by the too much information. I'm not overwhelmed by this affect of my partner. I'm not overwhelmed by our dynamics, right? You tell them, oh, that makes sense that you'll feel like that. And people are like that. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, that's okay. This is not going to swallow me. This is not going to take me. I can, continue to be myself. So, so that process with a couple is just kind of showing them, first of all, we're containing this. This is okay. And a part of this is just the couples coming to therapy, because automatically, if they're in a session, here they are, both of them, and all of a sudden all their problems are simply things that we're talking about in a room or over Zoom for like an hour and a half, and that's it. It puts some frame around it, so it doesn't threaten to drown you and to take you.
I think you're touching on something important, which is like, I'm not scared of your chaos, right? That like you can dissolve into this process, and I'm fine with that. That like I won't dissolve with you, but like I will sort of be the beaker and you all can dissolve. And I think that there is also our own human experience of dissolution and like being willing to like, you don't unscramble the egg. You can't. And so you're now committed to scrambled eggs. And sometimes we wanted a sunny side up egg and you're like, what? So you have choices. You can get 2 new eggs. You can goodbye relationship, or you can go, we've made scrambled eggs. And after we make scrambled eggs and those are cooked, you have the opportunity to have a sunny side up egg again, if you'd like it. But you don't unscramble the eggs ever. And so that I think that there is something, at least in the way that I hold a couple, that is, to me, I'm like, it's all scrambled. I see that you have a desire for it to be unscrambled. You must finish what you have started. You must continue the chaotic new birthing that is greatly uncomfortable, that has you untethered and feeling completely broken and unsure if this will work. And sure, if your goal was sunny side up eggs and you've made scrambled eggs, you're very upset that you've made scrambled eggs. And there's all the reasons. Well, you stuck your fork in there and you scrambled them up. And it's like, well, no, you did that. And there's a whole process, I think, of just acknowledging, yeah, we've scrambled the eggs. We must cook them now and see what it's like to eat those. And really, like, it's a full process that you've begun. And so if you're coming in chaos, whether it's individual or couples, you've come to me with scrambled eggs. I will never unscramble that egg. I can't. Neither can you. Nobody can. We must finish what we started. So let's finish. And then we can, and maybe to be less metaphorical and more actual, what does that look like? I think when two people or however many people sit down in a room and they say, it's bad, it's hard, we don't know what to do, we're lost, we're confused. I think, Izzy, is what you're saying. Yeah, I see that. It's hard. You're confused. You feel lost. I won't be scrambled with you, but I know the feeling. I'm acknowledging that you are scrambled eggs. There is a place to say, this is not what you want. This is not how you want it. And people have, they don't want to be vulnerable. They feel like, oh, this person doesn't deserve that, or they feel really hurt, or they feel too scared that they will only ever get scrambled eggs, right? That it will result in the same thing. And so to be able to create the opportunity for something new, I think can only be birthed through chaos. You cannot create something new with something old. You have to, scramble it up and say, what can we make with this? Oh, turns out we're making cake. We're not making eggs at all. I didn't know we were making cake. Like it's a whole other thing that gets birthed, and I'd much rather eat cake than eggs, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think chaos is just always the beginning, right? We always start with a scrambled egg.
Mhm.
And there is something really, really valuable to entering therapy, first of all, with two clinicians like you who are very familiar with that realm of chaos, who have gone through their own trials and tribulations and are open to continually doing that on a personal level, that creates a natural state of trust when you come in, that in a very felt sense that you can feel the comfort of the person that you're bringing your chaos to. There's a confidence that's born of experience. And with that trust, a willingness to not get too wrapped up in fixing it right away, not to get too wrapped up in what do we do now? What do we do to make it better? Right. And there's something to doing, but I think coming in with an attitude of curiosity and patience with the chaos, and our starting point is actually opening to the chaos and delving into it, in a sense, jumping in to the abyss,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really scary, is really, really scary. But it is through that, kind of jumping into the dark, that what is to be done kind of comes forth. I think sometimes when couples come in, they're in a world that is just kind of fractured and fragmented, that is ravaged by chaos. And there's fires, there's floods, there's, perhaps betrayal, mistrust, years of accrued memories of harm and resentments that have built up and are shaping the way that they view each other. And this old world is kind of done, like it's not inhabitable anymore. And in a sense, we just need to let it fall apart. And as it falls apart and there's movement towards a new relational world, folks find themselves in outer space, groundless, it's dark, it's scary. And the only contact point is your own body, your own breath. In that dark, you start to become intimate with yourself in a way that's new. You start to touch into parts of yourself maybe that you've forgotten, that have always been there, that are kind of waiting for you. And through that process, eventually you find your feet on the ground in a kind of a new world, a new relational kind of environment that is going to take some time to rebuild and establish kind of trust in. But there's no skipping over the burning of the old world, or the dark, kind of scary space, the liminal space, outer space, on your way to kind of a new world where you can rebuild a new culture, new agreements that come forth from, kind of a relationship with a new self. And I don't know the process there. Oh, it's always a surprise every time. I might have some kind of ideas and directions, but it's always a surprise. And the what to do, how to get there, always comes out of allowing kind of the chaos, entropy, and fragmentation of the old world to kind of mutate you.
Mm-hmm.
Some ways, it is the path.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about how we're birthed from chaos. There is fracturing and chaos literally in like unspiraling DNA, ripping it in half, mixing it with someone else's. Like we were birthed into being this way, whether we like it or not. And it seems to me that there's this micro macro of if you want something to grow, get larger, change, be different, there will be the chaotic fracturing and splitting and scrambling that I had this question in my head that's like, does it always have to be so uncomfortable? And it's kind of like, I think maybe yes. I'm not sure. But it's like I certainly know my own subjective experiences. Doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel like it's the beginning of something new that I'm gonna love in a year from now or however long. But no doubt we can look backwards and go, that was the point at which something had to die for something new to live. And death is hard. And when I say death, like a little death, like there's a dying in an old way of relating to one another. There's a dying in old protection mechanisms. And that's that burning down. And it's really hard to burn stuff down that's kept you safe, that's kept you warm, that you have many memories in, that you really in some ways enjoy, in other ways are sick of. And it's a scary thing to find yourself in outer space, untethered and with a burnt down home with nothing. And to be willing or not willing and drugged through chaos, that it's like at that coagulation point where it's like, oh, I think I can see something new forming, right? That it's that ingredient of what must a couple have. I think it's like openness. There has to be a level of openness. And I wanted to say surrender, but I don't even know if you have to surrender to it. It's just, I'm willing to acknowledge, I'm open to acknowledging a little death, many little deaths. I'm open to acknowledging that it will hurt and that this person across from me is doing the same. And we don't like it and we don't trust it or each other right now. And in that way, it's like, as the therapist, sometimes we're for the holders of the totem, like they pass it to us to keep safe when everything's on fire. It's like, okay, I'll hold this until there's a little bit of something that's been built. We have a tent that we can put it in, or a hole in the ground that we can cover it. But for a moment, it's like sometimes you find yourself holding something that neither person can believe is true. And you're there as a therapist, like, no, I say, you can do that. Like, yeah, it's mostly a felt thing. I almost never say that. I just kind of hold it as like, okay, I see I'm the totem keeper of the relationship, evidenced by you both show up and that's about it. Yeah.
What you both are saying about the necessity of chaos in the process of the birthing of a new situation and just progress and creativity, just simple creativity in the sense of like we are creating life. It makes me think of the Kabbalistic creation myth where there's like God put a whole like the what is called the limitless light. That's how they call it, something we can't know about, but it makes a hole in himself, like a vacuum, so to speak. And then in that vacuum, the light comes in. And according to the Kabbalah, there's the issue of the broken vessels, that in many situations in the world, in the universe that we lived in, the vessels can't hold the light. So the light breaks the vessels. So we have experiences that we can't contain. It could be like a partner that we can't contain. If our partner is, let's say, really depressed, it's just hard to contain a depressed person. Or if our partners has expectations that we can't meet, and it's hard to contain that. So we can't contain it, and when we can't contain it, we break, and we have parts of our experience that we can't hold on to, and that they fly all over, and it's very, very chaotic. And I think a part of what you guys are saying is that you have to allow it because it just has to happen. So if you're coming in and saying, oh, this is not going to happen, you don't know what you're talking about. This happening, and it's not going to unhappen. So what you need is to hold it. And the holding it, I thought before that, Naomi, when you were talking about scrambled eggs, I was saying this thing happens, somebody's trying to make an egg, it has to become scrambled. And he's, oh my God, it came out. And then once you just reflect back to them, hey, you just made a scrambled egg. It's okay. It could have been inside up, but it came a scrambled egg, and you contain it for them. All this is a scrambled egg. And just by process of containing it, it helps people put these chaotic situations. It doesn't threaten their identity and their existence, this chaos, right? Like the same way that a little child, they need the order because otherwise it threatens their existence. They don't know what's going to happen. Is we're going to go there, we're going to go here. Where is this going to end? And somebody's coming to you, hey, this is happening. It's okay. And just by being there in front of someone telling you, oh, this is happening, just by someone telling you, oh, you just made a scrambled egg. You're like, oh, I made a scrambled egg. It like gets you out of the chaotic state by having somebody else look at you and tell you, oh, this is what's happening. Honestly, it's really like babies, right? Like little kids. And you tell them you went on your bike and you fell and you have a scratch and we're going to put something on it. Or when people start college, right? So you go to you're nervous. Oh my God, college, what's going to happen? And then you go to like an admin, person and he tells you, you're going to take courses. You're going to take 4 courses this semester. And this is what's going to be with the test. And you're all of a sudden, oh, this is all contained. This is not going everywhere and endangering everything. You kind of narrow it down for them, hold it for them. And that in itself makes it the situation, I think, so much more bearable for people.
There's something to recognition that is innately ordering, right? Like just being able to locate your position in space and time in the arc of a process, right? That repeatedly moves from fragmentation and disordering and darkening and burning down and refining and coming back together, kind of gradually into new form that, also can provide a lot of relief. It's so easy to get lost with, identified, melded with whatever phase of the process that you're in. Start to feel as if this is what life is now and this is what it will always be. So again, there's something really, really helpful, therapeutic about coming into contact with a therapist who is familiar with the territory of that map of chaos and entropy and its path forward.
I know you have a question to ask, John, but I have a question. Is it okay to sneak one in? Okay.
Let's go.
I'm thinking about those who run wildly towards chaos as if, and they're like, why am I this person? Like almost like this unconscious drive, or sometimes a conscious drive, right? Like I'm thinking about, I think being a teenager is very much like the embodiment of like, I will be chaos at this moment, right? Like I'm going to like individuate and separate from the parental unit and the authoritative unit and society as me. Like there's like this goal to I'm not that. And in that, we as teenagers, we're chaotic. Like we're so chaotic that like the old system, the parental system, maybe the larger cultural system is like gripping at this old way. Listen to me, go to bed at 9 o'clock, whatever it is. I was thinking about a lot of teenagers engage in drinking or drug use or some form of chaotic inducing behavior or thing that like will most likely guarantee some form of space journey. I want to burn it all down. I'm very okay with burning it all down at this part of my life that and there are some people that embody this like just regularly, that they are sort of the catfish that stir up the mud on the bottom of the lake. Like that is sort of their job. Like, and they are these people. And so there is something about those who are more comfortable or even have a gift of chaos or chaos in them, that or it just keeps finding itself kind of in there. Maybe they were born into a certain religion and a lot of chaos is required or within them. And then they find themselves on the other side and they're like, actually, I'm this a whole other thing. I'm not religious, or I'm this other sort of religion is an example I can think of. And it can be, I don't know, it's interesting to think about those who hold the quality of, I'd like to induce a little chaos and it's fun. I think of it as like the archetype of like the jokester too, has that little wry, like, ooh, like a little bit, I'm just going to do a little chaos and then I'm going to kind of step back. I'm gonna do a little chaos. And I'm just gonna like, there's different levels to chaos and like the meaning that happens when that fracturing comes, right? Like sometimes, I don't know if you guys have ever had a coworker back when maybe you weren't therapists and you had to work with like a big group of people, or like I'm thinking of when I was a teenager, I worked at like a juice bar or like a gym and there's like lots of people around. But there's always like 1 or 2 coworkers that like come in and are like, boom, and they like crack the glass or the mirror, and then they're like bye, and they kind of just like step back, like they enter their little chaos sprinkles, and then they're like, look at it go. And there's like this elation that sort of happens, and sometimes like the group is upset, you're like, you're the pot stirrer, why are you doing that? And the person that's the pot stirrer or the chaos bringer or the sort of Rumpelstiltskin, the like little imp that runs around, is like gifting chaos as if to say, you thought it was all organized and planned and predictable and stable. It's not, right? And they sort of embody this in a way that it can be wry and fun, and other times it's like it can be heavy for them. I think it's like, why am I this person who's always inducing change? I'm just that person who has to say the truth that no one in this room wants to hear, but here it is flying out of my mouth. And why am I always that person? I think that there's also some people experience that relationship to chaos that maybe is a little different than what we're talking about, that they find themselves sort of in the corner like, ooh, I'd like a little chaos. When we're in relationship and things are stale, I think we look for chaos, whether it's conscious or unconscious. We're like, let's scramble the egg, let's mix it up to know that we have something here.
Yeah, I'm thinking about when you said that, when you talk about the trickster, I'm thinking about the fool card in the tarot deck. The fool is kind of like the end of the cycle. He's a little bit like the enlightened one. And I think the fool is one that does not mind the chaos and does not expect order. And he's like okay with everything. Nothing threatens him. Nothing. He's great, or her. Yeah. And I think there's something very, of course, very good in chaos, because nothing stays the same. You're going somewhere. So either you let some chaos come and crack the egg and make something of it, start things moving, start a process, start something, or you disintegrate, like, which is for me a worse option in general.
Yeah, I have affinity for those types. It's an archetype I'm familiar with on a very personal level. And I think, yeah, some of us are predisposed almost. It's like in our DNA, and are almost born into environments that, kind of promote this familiarity with turbulence and chaos, and kind of develop a comfort with that territory, and can really, really see its value. And it's interesting, kind of on a cultural level, as we kind of zoom out, that there's so much of that in the world right now. I don't know if you guys have noticed. And, and there's heads of state, people who are running countries who seem to be fools, agents of absolute chaos. And I'm very sensitive to the impact that has other peoples in the world, the impact of war and economic instability, etc. And I find myself really kind of coming back to, for one thing, just kind of imagining, the value of chaos is in times like these, and wanting to zoom back and look at the bigger picture so that I don't become lost or blended, mired the instability. But I also go, where's the stability? Where is the ground kind of within this? And I think a lot about relationships and their value in times like this. And I'm wondering if either of you have anything to kind of say about the importance of relationships as we go through a period of instability, of kind of entering the unknown, the darkness. We don't know what's coming. When the fool is the trickster, it's a really, really active archetype. Sure, there's something so important to kind of opening up to it and engaging with it, but also finding ground. So yeah, I'm wondering if you two have anything to say about the finding ground in terms of relationship, value of relationship in times like these.
I mean, for me, like, relationships is everything. And I think the feeling of chaos that we're experiencing now has a lot to do with kind of post-industrial 20th century and 21st century culture, where people are ripped apart from we don't have a strong sense of community. We don't have like that. Not we. A lot of people have, but a lot of people don't. Many people don't have a sense of community, a sense of family, a sense of finding ground with someone. And, I'm thinking about our phones as, wake up in the morning. And for me, at least, one of the things that I do in the morning is I usually look at my phone. And it's literally the agent of chaos. All the people that looked for me when I wasn't near my phone, and the news and the messages, and it just enters me, and I feel how my peace is disturbed by chaos, which is the complete opposite experience from all of a sudden, oh, I'm next to someone that I love and they're looking at me and we're grounding. Even for me, it's when I'm seeing clients, right? So all of a sudden one person, and this is all that it is, people looking for peace, looking for, containment, looking for wanting to be seen. There's definitely, for me, in the situation that we're in now politically in the world, I find that my phone is the agent of chaos in my life, and media in general, especially social media. And the people around me tend to be an agent of grounding and containment. And it's also, I'm aware that some people have actual war chaos, which, that it's where resources are being taken away, people that get hurt. And of course, that's a whole other level of horrific things. But we also know that also in these cases, relationships and being seen and being contained and knowing that somebody's there with your pain makes the whole difference. Right? When we talk about trauma, we talk a lot about that the event itself, as big as it can be, is not as much as important as who did you tell afterwards. How did they react when you told them what to do? It's like before I talked about the shattering of the vessel. You had a traumatic experience in an experience that shatters all your vessels. It's completely chaos. It's like energy that you are not able to contain, not able to understand. And then the question, what happens? Does somebody step in and hear what happened to you and contains you and recognizes your feelings and tells you, yeah, you're broken for a second, but I see you and I'm holding you. You may be in pieces, but I'm seeing all the pieces here, and it's all good. We're here. You're gonna Growth is gonna happen. Self-gathering is going to happen. So going back to your point, John, I definitely think that human contact, being contained, is the antidote to chaos. I was thinking before that sometimes I think about chaos as like a mess, like there's a lot of things. It's like it's disorganized. And disorganized, right? When a puzzle's broken, it's also disorganized, but I don't feel it's chaotic because it's contained. There's something you can have as much as disorganization if you want, if you feel, okay, this starts here and ends here. I think that difficulty begins where you don't know where this is starting and you don't know where this is ending. And being contained by someone, being seen by someone, you are experiencing starting somewhere and ending somewhere. It's like almost a mysterious feeling, right? When somebody looks at you, you're like, oh, you're seeing me. I'm here. I'm here.
I think a few things came to mind for me. I think the Izzy, what you're talking about, of like almost this like human infantile drive of like holding or containing, and this feeling that we're held, right? That the mother is in the room with us. And I don't mean your actual mother, but the sort of archetypal mother who is the holder, but she's also sort of what we like constellate in, and who organizes the chaos. And then, more and more chaos, death and birth cycles metaphorically kind of continue. And I think that community or people give that reflective quality of like, make it, I return to like a mantra often, which is like, get really small. And like, I don't mean like meaningless small. I mean like, how small can I make it to say like, where am I in time and space? Am I okay? What's in this room with me? Like, just keep making it layers and layers smaller until you feel, I think that containment, Izzy, that you're talking about, that's what kind of making it small is about, is what's within my control, what's without. And even though I'm in chaos and I can't control a lot of that chaos, that I can be in touch with my own stability, my own structure. And I had this like, this is going to be very telling of my millennial age, but like we had these like, I don't know, maybe every generation did this, but we had those like crystal grow kits, or like how rock candy's made. And all you do is you have this solution that's really, really, there's a lot of mineral or sugar or something dissolved in it. And it's clear, it's a liquid, or maybe it's blue, whatever. But you dangle a string in it, and then you wait, which when you're a child, it feels like about an eternity, and it's slow. And the only thing that's there is pure chaos and dissolution and this string. And then with enough time and enough kind of organization of the crystalline structure, it becomes heavy, it becomes very hard and solid. and it's all structured because of that little bendy string that was once in the center that at the beginning looks like it could never provide enough holding or grounding or structure. And yet 3 months later, it does. And then you go, whoa, this is not nothing. And sometimes that string is a phone call with your best friend or a connection with a stranger or a hey, does this feel really awful to you and chaotic? Bad? Yeah, me too. Becomes enough of that. I don't want to say it's enough to combat chaos, but what it is it's enough sort of grounding and finding to say, I'm not lost in this. I am not victim to the fool, at least from my subjective experience, right? That the fool's happening. There's use in that. It feels bad. I can't always see the use in it right now, but the natural cycle and order of things is that when there is a death of an old way, the birth of a new thing is very challenging. And when that new thing is on the other side, it's, oh, I'm so I'm so glad that old thing had to die. And then we have this lovely summer season of it's so great. And then guess what? It's time for fall. And you go, no, I could feel it all falling apart. Here we go again. Here we go again and again and again.
Yeah, I just really think that when things are scary, unknown, threatening, when and the world can, I think there's this ultimate reality that the mother is, this is at least reassuring for me. And I feel like I've had some glimpses of it, that the mother is always there, right? That there's always inherent order that is holding the disarray. And ultimately, on the ultimate level, it can be the goal is to develop a felt sense of that trust in your own body and kind of nervous system, so you can go out there and play and take risks and etc. And there's a reality that the world is harsh sometimes. The world is scary. People misbehave and act in ways that are harmful. In some places, there's not enough food to eat. In some places, your physical safety, kind of is a daily contemplation, something that you have to grapple with. And in times where those things are really pressing, it's really important that your relationships are clean, right? That you can rely on the people in your community, and that you're in closest proximity to. If Stan Tatkin, who I used to study with for years, would talk, use this metaphor often of the foxhole. He was very into evolutionary kind of psychology, but you don't want to be arguing with the person you're in the foxhole or the squad car with when the conditions outside are turbulent and rough. So, and I hate to sound apocalyptic or doom and gloomy or something like that, but I do think there is something really imperative in these times in taking care of the space between you and those you're closest to, because there is so much turbulence outside. So, and there's so many different ways to do that, but I think for me personally and for people in my world, therapy can be a place where you can really start to kind of build relational stability amidst the chaos. And that is an integral part, I think, of also this descent into the darkness, kind of all of those stages of, kind of alchemy that we're talking about. Sure, there's an aloneness to that, but also I think it's really important to stay connected to your team within that, to have your anchor points, your team of therapists and body workers and coaches and friends and mentors and guides. So there's something about that for me that seems really important right now at this juncture in history, to be frank.
I think, John, what I'm connecting what you said with what Naomi said, and about the importance to keep touch with your people, with your team, with the people that are sharing the foxhole with you. And I love Naomi's image of that string that the candy crystallizes on. And I think that, one way to see life is that life is what crystallizes around our relationships. Like, I'm almost imagining, like, when two people are looking at each other and they have like a good connection, like I'm imagining this like kind of almost like beam of light connecting them, and around that beam, like, life builds and forms, like the material life that, where you're living. Of course, sometimes there are external forces that are stronger than that in ways, and I think in a way the situation that we're in, the global situation there we're in, for me, has to do a little bit with, I think, when that line that connects you to another person is very clear and, and is positive, then what forms around it is a beautiful crystal. And when we're not managing to look at each other and those lines are crooked, then we're forming weird crystals and we're projecting on each other, and we have, so I really agree with what you're saying, that especially in our times, we got to really work on, for the lack of a better word, manifesting our, managing to look at other people and to have really deep connections around which our life can grow and be more beautiful and more meaningful and less chaotic. Yeah.
I hear you saying that. Like, it's like, be willing, right? That look across from you, because that it can be a really grounding, clarifying experience to have someone across from you who's both willing to take in, and also to someone else who's willing to take in their beam, right? That there's this thing that happens that's hard to place, but it's grounding and it's centering and it's stabilizing in a way that I think we need. I think it's innate to humans to look for that in whatever system makes sense to them.
For me, oftentimes I hold and imagine, kind of relationships through two lenses. There's especially a couple unit, right? Like there are these survival systems in some ways, right? Like we need our tribe, we need support in order to make it through, to, subsist. We need physical touch, we need emotional contact, we need people to help us, just kind of tackle the lives, or the tasks of life, parenting, working, earning money, to just do this thing, just to exist. And if that's all it is, it becomes really stale. Like it becomes really, really boring if that's all that it's a bit about. And I think there's been periods in our history where that's kind of what relationship is actually needed to be in order for our species to kind of move down the line and keep on growing. But also, relationships are these vehicles for growth and evolution, and now there's more space for relationship to be those things, and people want more intimacy. Like that's a primary kind of goal usually for people that come into my office. It's not just about like, how do we formulate agreements that help us get by and stick to them. It's like, how do we grow as people, and how do we deepen in intimacy together? And I think intimacy is, the starting point of that oftentimes is these disorganized, kind of conflict heavy spaces. We often have those conversations, but sometimes we record them. And I think that those two go, hand in hand. The evolutionary kind of model, the survival based model of relationship, relationships, the ground, the contracts, the agreements, together. But we also really, really want to make a cake, to formulate a crystal, to beam the light, right? To grow, to, kind of create increased order within ourselves, to kind of evolve as human beings. And in my view, like there's no better place than relationships of intimacy, primary relationships, in whatever form that they take. There's so many, creative, imaginative forms going on in the world right now.
I think while you're talking, I'm reminded of, that chaos. We've talked a lot about being in the foxhole and wanting harmony, right? Like in the relational context. And when one person feels like they're the bringer of chaos, that they say, I disagree with you, I have something else. It's almost like there's this clinging to like, don't destabilize the boat that I'm thinking of. For some reason it keeps flying into my brain, like the myth of the Noah's Ark. It's like there's two of every animal, and they're perfectly going to love each other and make more of that animal, and it'll be great, and the world is flooding and everything's a mess, and it will all be fine. And it's like, what if what if those two giraffes just really just hate each other and they just don't ever make another giraffe? One of those giraffes is really upset because the other keeps saying, we need to go over here for food, and that's too much chaos for the giraffe that's like, no, I like the area that we're in. What I mean by that is I think that there's this myth that like because we're here together, if we keep everything stable and perfectly structured and calm, and we are unwilling to dissolve the crystal that we formed back into the solution to make a new one, that's a myth. That's a myth. It's never this. It's this. Oh, cool. We're okay. Okay, now it's this, and then it's the like. It turns into that's what relationship is of any kind, and it's learning where does that affect me and my own dissolution into myself. Can my partner, can their view, or even the outside world, can they bring chaos to me, and does that mean anything about me? Does that impact me? Right? If my partner says to me, I don't like the way you talk to the dog, it annoys me, and then I go, oh my gosh, I'm the worst. Oh, how could I ever do that? I am now been dissolved because of someone else's chaos. And I am most likely really upset at that other person for bringing that and dissolving me. Or the other choice is you bring a little chaos back and you say, oh, you don't like how I talk to the dog? I'm going to talk to the dog more like that. It doesn't mean anything about me. It means something about you. You don't like it. It's awakening something in you that maybe you need to tend to. And maybe I can be more sensitive to that. Maybe I'll try not to talk to the dog like that in front of you, but it doesn't really mean anything about me. But I think often in relationship, the myth is that we can't do that. There's not room for that in the relationship because everyone has to go 2 by 2 and go perfectly and we all get along because we're the same and we're gonna go, we match, so we must go. What if the zebra and the hyena want to make a kid together? Then what are we doing with that myth? Like now there's trouble, right? But there's a bringing of chaos that each partner, each person in a relationship has agency in. And I think it's sometimes our job as the partner or the other person is to remain tethered and stable to ourselves and who we know ourselves to be, and it doesn't dissolve us. Sometimes it dissolves, I don't know, part of us, and that's okay. We can tolerate that. And then there's a thing we've been talking about more broadly, which is the full dissolution of the couple and the way that they function. This isn't working. This is too much. This is too chaotic. But I think that the myth is that there's not any of those little chaoses that come in. And when we bring fun, humor, jokes, like that's the trickster energy, but it doesn't, it's starting to birth something new, but it allows like a pressure valve to say there's room in this relationship. There's enough trust in this relationship where you can not agree with me, where we can have difference, where you can be a hyena and I can be a giraffe and we still love each other and get along. And I'm not asking you to be anything different. In fact, that's great. Maybe you have something to teach me and maybe I have something to teach you. And like I often hold couples as like, you guys are our greatest teachers. You just hate the lessons that are being kind of put between each other. And it feels really threatening to be dissolved. And it gets projected onto the partner. How dare you dissolve me? How dare you bring chaos to my life? I want stable. I want that stable place. And I think then, then we go into either entropy land of full chaos and dissolution of the full couple, or we don't.
I love, Naomi, how you said this, and then we're like that, and then we're this. I think it's totally like that. And it's scary. It's scary when you think about that. It's scary when you think, oh, I'm going to acknowledge that me and my partner are never going to be 1,000% aligned. We're not going to be 100% aligned. And it's going to be sometimes about things that are really crucial to me or crucial to them. And we're going to have to find a way around it and create somehow commitment beyond that, or that's stronger than that feeling. And I think it's totally true. I think in a healthy relationship, it's not like that. It's like that. Now we're doing it. Now we're like this. Just like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it also makes me think that when we have a partner, going back to the image of the beam connecting two people, or the string that the crystal is forming on. I think one of the decisions to have a partner, it doesn't have to be a partner, it could be a friend, it could be a pet, it could be a child, it could be anything. But you kind of decide, like, I want that person to hold the other end of my beam as my life forms around it. Or actually, it could be also a group of people. But whatever it is, I want this person who is containing my beam and I'm containing their beam. I want my life to be kind of expand out of that containment around that string that contains both people. Yeah. And then I go back to thinking how scary it is that it's not that smooth. Like that image is super smooth. People are looking and there's a beam and we're all happy and it's like a Disney film. And then no, and it's like,
Mhm.
So yeah, just going back to the question of how do we hold the chaos, and maybe acknowledging that we never do, but also not be afraid of it because it's gonna be fine. 'Cause it's just life, you know.
Mhm.
I yes. Yeah. And I also I want to give, like a shout out to the exciting part of chaos, right? It can be cold, dark, scary, and also I would say in a couple relationship, it can be erotic, like it can be, I think the source of kind of libidinal
Mhm.
life force energy all the time, but it's in those spaces where there's gridlock, there's no place to go, where one has to confront themselves and their own fears in relationship, that suddenly, kind of when you do open to that mess and start to take accountability for your own emotional experience and vulnerability, or to hold on to yourself and stick up, kind of for what it is you want without devaluing your partner, that all of a sudden this wellspring of energy can come forth, and it can get really hot and new and fresh, and a type of love that's deeply attuned and tender and natural and fluid and harmonic will come forth. And for me, it's so exciting to witness that with the folks that I sit with. And I imagine it is for you guys as well.
I think that there's a certain hunger, like you said, you don't want it to become stale. So it's like that chaos can bring a lot of magnetism, and it's something to harness and to value, right? That I think sometimes people think the goal is to get rid of, and it's like, oh, no, 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 no. No, lots of things. It's not just a dissolving agent for you or a threat to you. That in fact, what if this is kind of creating some pull, some stress, that we're not the same? That's not sexy. That's apparent. I approve of you. You're so great. That's not sexy. Yeah. Yeah. Not this. Right. And when we're looking up saying, do you approve? Am I okay? Am I okay? And always looking for that. That's a different sort of relationship. There's nothing wrong with this sort of relationship. It becomes wrong when the goal is this, when it's this creates libidinal energy, right? And each person is free to kind of do this or do this together, or all sorts of versions of that.
Absolutely. And I just want to add that, like, I think in a therapy process, one of the things that can be really beneficial and also exciting is when people start to really celebrate your thisness, like where you actually get excited about your differences and start to even become protective of your partner's differences.
Absolutely.
That is such a, like, a breakthrough, crucial, and you can't force it, like it has to come in its own time through this process that we've been describing today. But I think in some ways that is the mecca, where and that is the space in which, like you're saying so well, that actually real depth, connection, and harmonic energy come forth.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation about chaos, therapy, relationships, and all the things. We hope that you found it interesting, and at the very least, it piqued your curiosity. If you're looking for a therapist, that's what we do. We serve the entire state of California. You can find us on Instagram at Center for Depth and Relationship, or our website, same name, www.centerfordepthandrelationship. We'd love to connect with you, so come find us, follow us, and reach out. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.